Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Live as one. Can you imagine? Live as one. Imagine. Live as one.
Thank you, Cynthia, for your participation in your wonderful gifts, your song, your smile, your energy. Glad to have our senior minister home he's been gone for a few months. Welcome back to the house, sir. Thank you for your filling in so beautifully, Barbara, while he's been gone. Musicians, we're all homesick and we miss each other, and it's always a joy to see you. Thank you for coming today. Those watching by the internet from around the country and the world, we always welcome you. It's sort of a rite and a ritual that we have, a routine as human beings. And it's been interrupted in a lot of ways lately with the pandemic, but we're still trying to maintain some sense of sensibilities. My dad said, one of the last things my dad said before he transitioned, he said, it's common sense is not common anymore. It's hard to make sense out of some of the nonsensibles. We've been talking about emergence this month, and today we're saying emergence or emergencies continue. Emergent, emergencies, and urgencies. If you have an urge, like to get some water or maybe to relieve yourself of some water, I call it paying a water bill, you can sit here for the next 30 minutes with the urge. If I get through in about 15 or 20 minutes, if I go too much longer, the urge becomes an emergency, which means you will get up and walk out before I get through. I've had to actually leave the platform when those emergencies arise. It's just moving forward, moving forth. I call that excellence, the excellence, the forward thrust of humans who excel forward. It may look like we're confused, and there is a lot of confusion on the planet and in our country and in our culture, and perhaps in our consciousness. But ultimately, we move forward. I'm not counting. Sometimes I just count blessings. I refuse to count bruisings because bruisings can be depressing. But when I really feel overwhelmed, I actually do count my bruisings, the ones I've already sustained, the ones I've already survived, because I want to talk about surviving today, about outliving and outlasting the virus. How can we outlive and outlast our pain? We talk a lot about bravery, but sometimes it has less to do with bravery than it does with just enduring while you're scared. I have a little bit of an autoimmune disease of some type that causes disfiguration of my fingernails. It's been there for about 6 months. I don't know what causes it. And so I go to this dermatologist, and the first time she said, well, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then we have to give you an injection right in the cuticle of the nail. She said, are you going to be okay? And she had a couple of students there. And I wasn't sure what that was. She said, this is usually pretty sensitive, pretty painful. I imagined that it was, and I tried to imagine that I could sustain it. And so I made a practice several years ago of not looking away when I'm shot with a needle, but to look right at the needle and sometimes at the person inserting it into me to make sure that I'm not giving my power away to the fear of being stuck with a needle, or stuck with a person, or stuck with a situation, or stuck in that situation. So I looked right at it, and I didn't feel that much pain. And she had students there, and she was astounded that I did not react to the pain. Well, it wasn't that much the first time. So I didn't think it was a big deal. They thought it was pretty cool, and I acted like I endured pain, but it wasn't that much endurance because it was that much pain. The next time, it hurt a little bit. And she was a little bit apologetic, but I never flinched. I looked right at the needle, and it went in. And it wasn't bravery, it was endurance. This last time, it really hurt like Hades. I watched her stick the needle. She says, you're the bravest patient I've ever had. And I thought, I ain't brave. I'm scared, but I'm going to endure this because I have to have the shot. And it really, really hurt. I mean, it went all through my fingers, and when it hurt that bad, hit comes next. You know, it's like, you better get away, lady. But I just endured it, and I remember thinking, sometimes it's not at all about bravery. It's about the mindset to endure the pain or to outlast it. We can't change situations all the time. We can change our response or adjust. We're wearing masks as inconvenient or awkward or uncomfortable as they can be because we're adjusting to a situation over which we have no control. You wear the mask first to protect supposedly somebody else or protect their image of you. to go around Tulsa today with a mask assumes that you've given in. If you don't wear a mask, it means you voted for Trump. So we shouldn't categorize people that way, but we just do. They think that's a liberal, that's a conservative. And you expect most people of color to have the mask on. I meet a lot of people of color who don't wear the mask. I'm the only one in my household who's gotten the vaccine. My 91-year-old mother refuses it. My baby daughter refuses it. And she had COVID the other day. She went through a 10-day quarantine. My son hasn't taken it. He gives shots and tests on his job for the COVID, for the pandemic, but yet he doesn't feel like it's something he wants to do. A lot of people are adjusting to adjustments. It's not so much what you feel as what you think about what you feel. I've been saying that repeatedly. The universe doesn't judge us always by what we feel, because we feel afraid, we feel limited, we feel intimidated, we feel threatened, we feel free, we feel imposed upon, we feel invaded, we feel uncomfortable, uncomforted. So then the next thing is, well, what do you think about what you feel? And what do you think about what you think about what you feel? And then what do you think about that? Because thoughts are creative, they're inventive, they're powerful. What we think about, we ultimately bring about. It deals again with the idea of imagining. An image, you have to be careful what images you allow to rest in your psyche, because images are like magnets. They literally draw you toward them. If you consider that you will get the virus, or that you will give the virus, or that you're going to be a victim of the circumstances, if you keep thinking that way, you actually experience. What you fear most, you ultimately experience. By the same token, what you faith most, you ultimately experience. Sometimes you can believe in disaster so strongly, and all over the country right now, people are, whether it's Haiti, this is the second earthquake that has devastated the country. Billions of dollars were set apart for them to be aided before, which hasn't reached them as a country yet. Our country looks awkward and clumsy with the way we're handling Afghanistan. We have fires out west. We have storms today. I often sit and watch the news late at night, and there's all kinds of things happening all over the world, and I count my blessings while I'm looking at what could be ultimately bruisings, because people are suffering, and we're able to get up this morning, get dressed, get showered and get dressed, come to service. In a minute, we're going to go somewhere and get lunch, or go home and relax, or watch football, or watch TV, or ride around town, or stop by the grocery store, call a friend, stop by and see somebody we're pretty much, things are still fairly regular. You have a mask, you have sanitation, you have the 6 foot social distancing. Some of you ain't that socially distant. You're sitting fairly close today, but you ain't afraid of the person sitting next to you. You slept with them last night, or you rode in the car with them coming home. You're breathing each other's breath. We're wearing the mask, but it's a security blanket. It's a little bit of possibly a little placebo, because we're adjusting psychologically to things we cannot change. The objective is to last. Turn to somebody and say, will you last? Can we outlast the trauma and the drama? We are all suffering from PTSD. Ecclesiastes 9:1, one of my favorite passages. The race is not given to the swift, or the battle of the strong, but to the one who endures, the one who lasts, the one who survives, the one who hangs tough and hangs turf, the one who even doesn't necessarily feel brave, but feels strong enough to endure what you cannot change. The mask, adjusting it, because most of us like to lower it just under the nose. And on airplanes, they'll quickly tell you, please pull that up above your nose. And you want to say, why don't you pull that over your face? And that's what a lot of passengers are saying. And they're fighting, and they're getting violent, and they're reacting. We all have reactions to actions and responses to life. And we have to judge our own consciousness, what we feel, what we think, why we believe what we believe about ourselves, how those beliefs add to us or talk to the quality of our lives. I'm in an endurance mode, because we don't know how long this lasts. We thought things were getting better, and then all of a sudden, here comes Delta. I got several calls this week. The gentleman across the street from our home committed suicide a week ago, but we didn't learn it till 8 days after he had shot himself. His gardener goes in to try to reach him because they hadn't contacted him. Finally, he goes in and finds him, and he rushes out. Panic causes the association president. The president has to go in and see the man. He'd become terribly discolored, and he's been there 8 days, self-inflicted gunshot wound to his own chest. He wasn't unfriendly, but he wasn't necessarily friendly. He lived across the street of this big, beautiful home, one of the largest homes, if not the largest in our neighborhood. We never saw a light on day or night. A little teeny red light around the back. Curtains were never open. We would wave, and sometimes he would talk to my brother or somebody visiting, but not long conversations, no visitors. I don't know what he was going through, what he had been diagnosed with, what they had recently told him that made him feel so depressed or so hopeless, so with no anticipation of the future that he actually could kill himself. Suicide rates have tripled since the pandemic. Divorce rates have doubled and tripled since the pandemic. People going through mental illness and trauma, going into insane asylums or having to get special therapy, mental illness and stress and anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We're all dealing with that, and we've been dealing with it for a long time in this country. We're trying to adjust to various levels of mental illness when our psyche seems unstable. And we can't sleep, or we can't focus, or we can't wrestle off the deadly negative emotions. So people are drinking more than normal. More people believe in the garden. People that don't even believe in the Bible believe in the Garden of Eden. A few of you got it. They believe in the scripture that says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. So they get in their herbs, and people are trying to adjust, and that's normal. That's actually healthy. It's how you adjust, what you use as your adjustments. Will you last? I remember Oral Roberts said to me one time, I went to him to interview him about me going on television. This was 40-some years ago. And we were struggling with the City of Faith and struggling with aspects of the ministry. And he had his visions for his future. And I remember he said, well, son, you're a prince of a preacher. You always knock the ball out of the park. But television has bloodied me. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've bled over my national prominence. And he got up and walked across the room, and he looked out across the campus. He said, you know, they're trying to take this from me. At one point, he thought AllSouls was going to take it from me. He thought the Unitarians were going to get it. He finally got that settled. But he was with Dr. Wolf. But he raised a lot of money around that fear as well to sustain the university. But he said, they're trying to take this away from me. He said, but if they do, they'll have to take an ambulance to the hospital to handle it because you can't carry this in the flesh. I said, sir, we'll never let them take it from you. We're going to be okay. The university is going to last. Your ministry is going to sustain. I was trying to minister to my mentor. And I remember he said, well, there's one thing they can say about Oral Roberts. And I said, what is that, sir? He said, he lasted. And then he whirled around and looked at me and said, will you? And I got on my knees and said, yes, I think I will, sir. I thought he was going to lay hands suddenly on me and knock me across the room. Will you? He said that with such conviction, it intimidated me. Will you last? When he died, his ministry was debt-free. He was 91 years old. They'd kicked his son out. His daughter wasn't as welcome there. Everything was different. He was surrounded by people he didn't know. But when he left the university, it was $50 million in debt. And when he died, it was debt-free. But he still wasn't happy. He had adjusted. I said, sir, we basically gave the university, we sold it for $70 million. It's been a lot. The people have paid a lot more than that, of course. He said, I know, but I was in debt, son, and my son couldn't carry it. I had to do something. I had to make the adjustment. I'm not happy, but I lasted. I wanted the ministry to last. All Souls has been here all these years, 100 years, and we've lasted. The church has been through a lot. We've had a lot of bruising. So have you individually, each one of you. Think of what you've been through. If I was to let you tell your story, the pain, the pathos, the agony, the distress, the family issues, the marital dissatisfactions. Nobody can hurt you like somebody you love. Many of you have been in and out of the hospital, have had various diagnoses about illness. You've endured illness. You've endured arguments. You've endured mistreatment. You've endured rejections. You've endured low self-image and depression and sleeplessness and anxiety. You are a trooper. You are tough. You're strong. You're stronger than you realize. Count your bruisings with your blessings and see which has lasted. Turn to somebody and say, I'm still here. And say, I think you are too. I am here. Yeah, I'm telling myself, I don't know what the future holds, but I'll be there. I plan to be there. Calls all this week, more than normal, of people I know who've died of COVID, had it only 3 days or a week. Men, women, a prayer group back in Florida. The leader died, and that brother, Jesse Williams, who worked for us and has now transitioned. His father is in hospital today. And I've had some people in their 40s and 50s that have actually gotten sick and passed on within 3 or 4 days. It's very depressing to keep hearing this news. When you get my age, which is 68, you're losing a lot of people anyway. Parents and grandparents and godparents are mostly all gone. A lot of your siblings, a lot of the people of your age category are dealing with growing age. Getting old can be very inconvenient. And I'm not even that old. I'm only 68. And you know 68 is not old, especially if you old. You know 68 ain't that old. But I've lasted. Turn to somebody again and say, I've lasted. She knew it. She said it and knows it. In many ways, life as a whole is a viral or itself a virus. I call it a sexually transmitted dis-ease or disease. That's incurable. Life is incurable. It's only treatable. And it's terminal because we all go through the transition we call death. So how do we treat this incurable dis-ease, this virus that we call life, that everybody you know is a victim to or is affected by? We're all here because we suffer from a sexually transmitted disease that we inherited from our parents. And it's called life. They were intimate whether they were married or not, and here you are. In the distress or dis-ease, the tension, the stress of trying to survive, we develop behavioral modifications, coping mechanisms, trying to manage the pain and the pathos of just existing as a human being and remaining sober or sane, or both, or at least one of them. How do we handle our own insanity or feelings of depression? We're the ministers, we're the counselors, we're the teachers. We're trained to help people. But dentists get cavities. Cardiologists have heart attacks. Oncologists die of cancer. Would you be hesitant to go to a dentist who wears dentures? That doesn't mean he's a bad dentist. It's just he didn't take care of his teeth for taking care of yours. A lot of people experiencing firemen's house catch on fire. Police officers get in trouble. Lawmakers become lawbreakers. We all know that. So we struggle in a culture that keeps shifting. And our objective is to learn to adjust. You endure by learning how to adjust, tweak, shift. As we often say, shift happens. Roll with the punches. Don't just go with the flow, grow with the flow, especially when the flow becomes a flood. The tension that we're experiencing just in relationships with people today, I've never seen such polarity in our country. And everybody's really stuck where they are. I have family members I cannot talk about the vaccination with. They literally go off. Not in my house, because you don't get to go off in my house, but you can go off in yours. But I have where you can talk to them on the phone, and there's just this wild reaction to everything. The country is not sure about 9/11, not sure about the Oklahoma bombing, not sure about how and who killed President Kennedy, not sure about weapons of mass destruction. They doubt the news, they doubt the scientists. They don't just doubt the science, they doubt the scientists. People don't even trust their doctors anymore. The number one virus, I think, in our country today is distrust and suspicion. We live and die, we live until we die, and then most of us think we get to live again. When somebody asks you, how are you doing? You've heard me say before, they're actually asking you, how are you dying? How are you dying today? Oh, I'm dying pretty good. Or you might say, I ain't dying so good today. Let me put my mask on. Doing and dying, living are all the same thing. We're all going through this constant process of change and interaction and interfacing. Not just combating, but confronting life as it is and adjusting to it. Turn to somebody one more time and say, I'm surviving. Come on, say it. You ain't even sure. We've been profoundly conflicted and disunited culturally and almost continentally since the 2016 election in ways we probably haven't been since the Civil War and leading up to it. As a man of color, the wrestling with this whole idea of victim consciousness is something I have to deal with all the time. We're constantly confronting racists and racisms, and they keep repeating themselves with this whole commemoration of the massacre and the silence in Tulsa, and sometimes the attitudes that we people of color, you may not experience if you're not of color, of people that are bold with their arrogance and bold with their racism. A friend of mine was on one of the lakes here in a beautiful yacht, an African-American, a beautiful yacht, and a man pointed his yacht right at him. And my friend said, well, sir, I don't want any trouble. He said, oh, yeah. The white man said, I want trouble. An older man with a raggedy boat. Wasn't as pretty as the black man's boat. Just had this attitude. Who would tell it? For me to drive down to the city of Tulsa and somebody look at me because of the car I'm in or where I live or come to my house. I never had this before in my 50 years of living here, of a person coming to my house to do some work. When they find out it's me or a man of color, they don't know what this Carlton Pearson doesn't mean anything to them. They just want to do the work. I've had people reject my house 5 times on 5 different occasions for 5 different reasons, and that never happened before. They'll run their car right up to me, just look at me like, how dare you? And I'm adjusting to what that means. When it's all over, at the end of the day, how do I feel about me? I don't hate the person. I hate the situation that brings that about. I hate the consciousness that brings that. There are some unpardonable sins. There are no unpardonable sinners. Some sins are not to be pardoned. Some things, when I say sins against humanity, crimes, are not to be pardoned. They're never to be forgivable. The people who inflict those or the perpetrators, of course, we adjust. But we got to have a certain attitude about certain things we will not tolerate culturally. We will not tolerate being dishonored or disrespected or disregarded because of our gender or our race or our sexuality or our height, whether we wear a mask or not wear a mask, whether we have friends who've had the vaccine or those who are suffering with the virus. We have to stop this horrible judgment of one another, take a good long look at ourselves and at our soul and manage our own business privately and powerfully. Don't give your power away to fear. I got to close. And don't give your power away to the circumstances. I'm a survivor intentionally. I'm going to survive this on purpose, with purpose. I watched Aretha Franklin's movie, and they talked about being demonized yesterday with Jennifer Hudson. I spent time with Aretha. Aretha felt vexed and tormented. I did Radio City Music Hall with her. I did the Constitution Hall. I went to Detroit several times. She was wrestling with feeling demonized. Many people feel, that's what pandemonium means. Pandemonium. Demon is the middle term there. It is being demonized, not demon-possessed, just vexed and tormented and agonizing and having the anxiety of mind and sleeplessness and restlessness, the insomniac spirit working all day, suspicious about everything. When have we ever lived in a day when we be concerned for our loved ones to leave and concerned for them to come home? We don't want them to leave and get a disease or come home and bring one. And we love them. There's a lot of people you love right now that you don't even trust. There are people you love and adore, but you're suspicious of them. There are people you love and you're connected to, but you profoundly disagree with their attitude about something. And you've never felt that awkwardness so severely as you do now. So you can't change their attitude. You must adjust yours. Say, I will survive this relationship even if I'm hated or disliked. Wrap your arms around yourself like this. I hardly got through anything that I wrote, but I said what I was feeling. I just write stuff just to see if it comes out all right. I wondered who would be here today. I wondered what caliber of person would come, what you would need for coming, and what you'll need next week and what you needed last week, and how this service would impact or imprint your life. Every time you come, that's what we're thinking about. From the music and the drum beat to the greeters to our sound engineers, we want this to be a time when you are encouraged, enhanced, and embraced like this. When I say hug yourself, love yourself, say, I got this, I can make it, I'll survive it. I release you to peace of mind, better sleep, less anxiety. We pronounce it on you. We pray for the stability of your mind, of your psyche, of your soul, of your self-worth. I encourage you to rid yourself of victim consciousness. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're a victor over them. Count your bruises. You've already been through so much. You sustained some amazing pain, and you lasted. We used to sing that song, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, what would I do? Where would I be? You've lasted because you deliberately intended to. And we send you forth in just a couple of minutes with an enduring spirit. The race is not given to the swift, but the battle to the strong, but those who last. We encourage you, we empower you, we embrace you. Last, endure. The best is yet to come. It'll get worse between now and the next several months. There'll possibly be guns in the street, violence. People are freaking out. Hold your peace, hold to your peace. Don't react. If that means you have to turn the television off for a few days and not watch the news to keep your sanity, then do it. We'll remind you when you get here on Sunday what the news was last week. We'll try to capitulate it in a way. But we embrace you in love, in strength, in positive reinforcement, in spirit that is holy. God bless you. God be you.
Thank you for joining us. For 100 years, All Souls in Tulsa has been a beacon of this free faith. We offer our services and programs freely online for all those who are interested. You can help us to do this by making a one-time gift today or a reoccurring pledge. We really appreciate you joining us and being a part of helping us make All Souls in Tulsa what it is. Thank you.
Woke up this morning with my mind